15 years ago, a transmission was sent out. Its message has gained attention. Have you noticed the war against us all?
The number you have reached, 911, has been changed to a non-published number.
You can make it, man. We can make it together. We can get it together. We can get it together. Now that's all.
A local inventor has discovered a way, hear this, to use water to run your car.
It's a major breakthrough that will no doubt make motorists happy. And as Ralph Robinson explains, the Pentagon is also showing lots of interest in this project.
I don't care if you use rainwater, well water, city water, ocean water. If you don't have any fresh water, go ahead and use snow. If you don't have any snow available to you, then use salt water because there's no adverse effect to the fuel cell.
Now, there may be an energy crisis. Well, this president has a very forward-thinking energy policy. He's trying to create an alternative energy source.
And I told him, yes, I do. I'll stand up with you. His machine is probably the most important invention and discovery in the history of man.
The only comment that the patent office made was the judge should refrain from believing in the tooth fairy. I did that in good faith, and my government betrayed it and tried to say that me and all of them were conspirators or incompetent. That was their comments they made about these people.
We have reviewed hospital policies and procedures and believe that we are fully compliant with these requirements. So, sir, is the problem that the requirements aren't strict enough?
They're planning to be fully compliant, but certainly when they dropped off a woman on the streets in a nightgown who had high blood pressure, a fever, didn't know time or place, they weren't in compliance. And certainly when they dropped off, the reason is our society just does not have the heart that it needs to have for the poor, for the sick. We want to spend billions on war and building prisons, but we don't seem to want to spend any money taking care of folks.
What would you do for a quick $20,000? Well, the Army is hoping you might be willing to enlist and ship out for training within 30 days.
It's something we use in times like this, is to just be that little extra incentive.
What do you say to soldiers who are already in the war zone who didn't get this extra $20,000, but they might be fighting next to some who did?
That is usually the case with Army recruiting incentives, and I think soldiers understand it.
That's no little incentive, $20,000. That's quite a chunk of change.
No, and we can offer up to $40,000.
After his school banned water bottles, a 13-year-old decided he didn't like the alternative, drinking from school water fountains, so he tested the fountains. And guess what? What did you find when you compared bacteria in toilets to what was in the water fountains?
Toilets were cleaner than the drinking fountains.
How much cleaner are toilets than drinking fountains? Significantly so?
Yeah.
I could go anywhere in my house when I was a child. You know, there was 3 or 4 different rooms. I could go into my basement and I could get clean water and drink it. And those were great times. Then we said we'll save money. We won't clean the water so much. And with the money we can save, we can then buy the water at the supermarket. I want to drive and drive and drive and look for water like my ancestors did.
As bus radio expands into 4 states, they may soon head north. But that's not all the corporations have in mind for enhancing public education.
And
if you think they're watching too much TV at home, just imagine 7 million kids forced to watch commercial messages on school TV as part of the morning class. Folks at Channel 1 will provide free television sets to every classroom. And all they want in exchange is that the kids watch 12 minutes a day.
Mika Nichols is at the White House with the story.
The president has signed a bill that he says could keep some illegal immigrants out of the U.S.
Between 1990 and 2000, 10 years, advertising to children in North America has gone from $100 million to $2 billion.
They can't understand the fundamental basis of advertising. So how is it that they can defend against it?
What Fox Television told us was that we were just the people to be the investigators.
Do any stories you want, ask tough questions, and get answers.
One of the first stories that Jane came up with was the revelation that most of the milk in the state of Florida and throughout much of the country was adulterated with the effects of bovine growth hormone.
With Monsanto, I didn't realize how effectively a corporation could work to get something on the marketplace. They had to get university professors into the fold. They had to get experts into the fold. They had to get reporters into the fold. And of course the FDA, let's not leave them out. They had to get the federal regulators convinced that this was a fine and safe product. And they did that. They did that very, very well.
The scientists within Health Canada looked very carefully at bovine growth hormone and came to very different conclusions than the Food and Drug Administration in the U.S. did.
Monsanto's engineered growth hormone did not comply with safety requirements. It could be absorbed by the body and therefore did have implications for human health. Mysteriously, that conclusion was deleted from the final published version of their report.
They knew there were problems. They saw serious potential human health problems, and they stood up in Canada and said, we're not going to approve this because we don't believe it's safe.
They were afraid of being sued, and they were also afraid of losing advertising dollars.
So we got into a battle. About a week later, calls us back to the office and says, okay, we'd like you to make these changes. In fact, you will make these changes. And I'll never forget, he didn't pause a beat, and he said, we just paid $3 billion for these television stations. We'll tell you what the news is.
He was going to offer us the rest of our year's salary if we agreed not to talk about what Monsanto had done, to not talk about the Fox corporate response in suppressing the story, and to not talk about the story, not talk about BGH.
I said, you mean if I want to go to my daughter's PTA meetings and explain what's in the school milk at the school lunch program? I can't. No, you can never speak about this anywhere.
And Steve says, okay, write it up. And I'm like, write it up? What are you talking about? Write it up. He wrote it up. And he FedExed it to us a couple days later. And he said, are you going to sign? And we said, nah, Dave, we're not going to sign that. And he said, well, send it back, okay? I said, no, Dave, we're not going to send that back.
I think we're dying.
Oh, how much did you guys have?
I don't know. We made brownies, and I think we're dead. It was a quarter ounce.
How many pieces do you guys think you guys had?
I don't know. I probably had like a small chunk. Please come.
A former narcotics cop has switched sides. He's now offering tips to help pot smokers evade the law.
Another great place to conceal your stash.
9/11 synchronicity.
Barry, just have to ask you, why are you trying to help the criminals flout the law now?
Well, maturity, compassion, and logic and reasoning, and what really topped it off is when I learned Harry Anslinger testified in 1937 before the Senate, and I'll quote him, marijuana should be illegal because it causes Negroes to seek relationships with white women.
Yeah, okay.
It's a racist law, and there's a good argument the black people in this land could sue the government because it's a racist law.
Yeah, okay, I'm not sure I buy that. Yeah, I don't even know what to do with that.
For to grow hemp legally, you must have a federal registration and tax stamp. This is provided for in your contract.
It's the healthiest plant on the planet Earth. In fact, it's greater as paper, fiber, fuel, medicine, food, than virtually any other plant on Earth. And if you take out medicine, it's greater than all the other plants on Earth combined.
And then one of the most disturbing things is that the family groups have been involved in drug running since the early 1800s.
Drug running?
And it seemed... Yes. The founder of Skull and Bones was William Huntington Russell, and his family business was a Russell and Company, which was the America's largest opium smuggler, the third largest in the world.
Wow. Chris Milligan, unfortunately, we are out of time. We're going to have to leave it at that fascinating subject, the author of a book on Skull and Bones. Thank you so much.
It didn't work last century, so someone figured it was a PR problem and changed the name Prohibition to an even more bullshit macho name, the War on Drugs. If you live in a free country, you have the right to put anything you want into your own body. Anything else is bullshit. Here's one of their early efforts at scaring the shit out of you. There's a name for this kind of bullshit: voodoo pharmacology. There are real dangers involved in drug use, there's no doubt about that. Kids need to know this stuff, but not from the government.
So why don't we hear that alcohol and tobacco are a gateway drug? Well, it's because alcohol and tobacco are multi-billion-dollar corporations, and they make lots of money in our society.
People ask about medical marijuana. That's just an excuse by the legalizers to get into the issue.
When you look at the issue of medical marijuana, it's largely a big hoax.
First of all, there's so few people. I don't know any good doctor out there who's going to say, hey, take a joint, it's going to make you better.
Really? It only took us a few minutes to find a good doctor.
Dr. Lester Grinspoon, professor of psychiatry emeritus at the Harvard Medical School. I learned that despite my training in medicine and science, I had been brainwashed like just about every other citizen in this country, that marijuana was not only not a dangerous drug, but indeed it was remarkably non-toxic. And I had to revise my view of it.
Don't smoke a migrant.
There's no need to be flattening these forests. We could be doing it with alternative fibres. Hemp and canaf are just two of them.
I experimented with marijuana a time or two, and I didn't like it, and didn't inhale, and never tried it again.
Grows everywhere, serves 1,000 different functions, all of them positive. To make marijuana against the law is like saying God made a mistake.
Still may know little about.
The CIA's involvement with drug lords
Happened in Vietnam, happened in the Iran-Contra affair.
This was a multi-billion-dollar business.
Even more menacing, the CIA have gone into the drug trade and are trying to take over the government.
It's funny. In the war
on drugs,
which side is the CIA on?
when you think crack, don't think black. When you think crack, think CIA.
Crack. The CIA.
Crack. The CIA. Crack. The CIA.
This summer, get a second look at how we got here. Rewind 15 years and re-examine where we've come from. In a time when we all feel like something is going wrong, look and see The War Against Us All. To see the full film, sign up for a membership with Grand Theft World. This film and many others come free with a membership. Navigate through the tabs and you'll find it here. The War Against Us All, Part 1 and 2. To get free content like this, get the Freedom Vault, link in the description.
Well, who knows how it'll all wash in Wisconsin.